These astronauts have arrived at an alien planet, but they are about to be shocked, as the life form they will encounter is the ghosts of their loved ones from Earth. A clinical psychologist named Chris Kelvin sits on a bed, reminiscing the words of his beloved, who tells him she loves him. The woman asks him if he loves her, and Chris sits there lost in thought. Later, Chris holds a group therapy session with individuals who talk about their problems with him while he silently listens. Chris attends a call in his office, where he sets up an appointment with different clients. Returning home, Chris receives a call from the DBA, through delegates who are looking for him. The DBA operates a space station that orbits the planet Solaris. The delegates relay a message by Dr. Jabarian. A friend of Chris, Dr. Jabarian, asks Chris to come to Solaris to help the astronauts understand a strange phenomenon. Jabarian is unwilling to tell Chris more, seemingly disturbed by the events. He explains that he knows the solution to the problem is to leave the space station, but seemingly none of the astronauts want to do that. The DBA delegates tell Chris that this message has caused panic in the organization. Chris asks why they haven't sent in a security force and is informed that they did, but lost contact. The security force has not returned yet, and this is a cause of concern for the company. The delegates try to convince Chris by telling him that the company has no choice at this point. They did not want to involve a civilian, but they require Chris' help to get the remaining members of the crew back to Earth. They inform him that he will be asleep for most of the trip, and he is their last hope. Chris is eventually convinced to take the solo trip to Solaris, aboard a ship named the Athena. As he approaches the ship, Chris looks at the planet Solaris and the huge space station in front of him. Chris arrives at the space station and begins to roam around. He notices blood on the walls and floor, which concerns him. During his walk, Chris discovers a room with bags and notices one that has Jabarian written on it. He discovers his friend dead inside the bag and then finds another bag with a dead body in it. Shocked at the sight of his friend's dead body, Chris is unable to understand what is happening. He realizes that Jabarian sent him the video message way before he died. Chris begins exploring the space station until he finds a room with a man named Snow. Chris questions Snow about the blood, and he explains that it is the blood of a former crew member, Katarn, who was killed by security forces for unknown reasons. Chris inquires about the death of Jabarian and is told that he committed suicide. Chris is confused by this, but understands immediately that things must be difficult on the space station. Chris questions Snow about other members and learns that they're all either dead or they disappeared. When Chris asks what's really going on, Snow seems reluctant to tell him. Snow cryptically says that until he goes through it, he will not understand. Chris asks about Dr. Gordon and learns that she is alive and in her room. Chris visits her room, but she refuses to let him inside. Opening the door a little, the two have a conversation, during which it is evident that Gordon is reluctant to explain the situation to him too. Gordon repeats the same thing Snow said. Until he experiences the phenomenon, there is no point speaking about it. Chris is left confused as Gordon shuts the door. As he is walking away, Chris notices a little boy on the ship and chases after him. Suddenly, the boy disappears. Chris learns from Snow that the boy is Jabarian's son, Michael. As Chris grows ever more confused, he is told that this is why he's here, to help explain these weird occurrences. Chris demands an interview with Snow and Gordon to understand what's happening. Gordon tells Chris that she has been on this project for a long time and was looking at the economic potential of the planet Solaris when strange things began happening. She tells him that she has checked the water and food and has not found any contaminations. She adds that she experienced depression and insomnia due to these strange occurrences. She informs him that whatever is happening, she wants to stop it, so that she can prove she is smarter than it. During his conversation with Snow, Chris lets Snow know that they can leave the ship and that this will all be over. Snow tells Chris that he would love to walk away from this, but he can't because of Gordon. Later at night, Chris falls asleep in his quarters. He dreams of his long-dead wife, Reya, and their first meeting on a train. He dreams of some of their most romantic and intimate moments, and how they got closer over time. Chris is awoken by female hands touching him, and finds that Reya is beside him. He stumbles out of bed, disturbed and afraid by her sudden appearance, knowing that Reya is dead. To confirm if it's really her, he asks her questions such as where they first met, and she answers correctly. However, Chris knows that this is not the real Reya. When Chris tries to leave the room, Reya refuses to let him. He takes her outside and brings her to the escape pods, showing her the inside of them. While she is distracted, he sends the escape pod into space to get rid of her. Later, he confides in Snow about his actions and tells Snow that it was his wife he saw. Chris learns that the replicas that all the crew members have been seeing are their loved ones, such as Jabarian's son. Snow asks Chris if he wants his wife back, even if she is in the form of a replica. After falling back asleep, Chris has more dreams about moments with Reya where he tries to convince her to marry him. He dreams of the time Reya told him of her imaginary friend and how her mother would only communicate to her pretending to be the imaginary friend. As he wakes up, he sees that another Reya replica has appeared. This time he lets her stay. As they cuddle, Reya tells him that she doesn't remember anything, just him. The two have a conversation where Reya asks if they've been apart, to which he replies that they have. Reya feels like she is not human, and that her memories are artificial. She feels like she lacks the emotional attachment that comes with having lived in these memories. A flashback reveals that the real Reya got a pregnancy test and found out that she was expecting a baby. Without telling Chris of her pregnancy, she chose to terminate it. However, when Chris found out, he got furious. Reya tried to speak to him, telling him that she had to do it, and that she didn't know if he even wanted one. In his anger, Chris refused to listen to her and tried to leave the house. Reya begged him to stay, as she believed she couldn't be without him, but Chris left anyway. After Chris left, Reya was so mentally disturbed and heartbroken that she took some pills and committed suicide. In the present, Chris tells Reya that he came back for her, but found her dead. He apologizes to Reya for leaving her. Later, Chris, Reya, Gordon, and Snow sit down to discuss everything. Snow reveals that he thinks the visitors are made of subatomic particles, stabilized by the Higgs field. Gordon discusses applying a negative Higgs field to disintegrate the visitors. She mentions that she wants to take the risk of applying the entire ship's power on this. Chris suggests to her that they can take the findings back to Earth. Gordon realizes that Chris has gotten attached to the replica of Reya. Angry at his suggestion, Gordon asks him what if the aliens follow them to Earth and create mass havoc. Chris refuses to let Gordon destroy Reya. In her anger, Gordon reveals that Chris sent the first replica of Reya away into space. Chris tries to explain that he was confused, but Reya walks away extremely upset, while Chris tries to stop her. Chris confronts Gordon about her outburst, and she tries to calmly explain that the replica of Reya is a part of Chris' mind. He doesn't want to believe her, so she exclaims that Reya is not human and is a strange alien entity. Chris tries to argue with her, but Gordon is firm in her decision that they will not be bringing the replica of Reya back with them. Later at night, Reya cries while Chris sleeps next to her. As Chris wakes up, apparently still dreaming, he sees a vision of Jabarian in the corner of his room. He's confused and tries to turn on the lights, but Jabarian stops him. Chris asks his friend why he killed himself, and he admits that it seemed like a good idea, but now he regrets it. Jabarian reminds Chris that these replicas are a part of Solaris and are not real. Chris asks Jabarian what Solaris wants from them, but is told that there is no answer to that, and the only solution is to leave. Jabarian also cryptically adds that there are no answers here, only choices. Suddenly, Chris awakens to find that Reya has disappeared from his side. As he goes to look for her, he finds her lying face down in a room, next to a puddle of liquid oxygen. He moves her body to find that half her face has been burnt, and she is dead. In a state of panic, Chris calls out to Gordon and carries her body back to the room. Snow and Gordon join Chris, who reveals that Reya drank the liquid oxygen and killed herself. Chris believes that Reya is dead, but suddenly Reya begins to resurrect in front of everyone. Chris can't believe his eyes when she opens hers, but Reya doesn't seem happy about being alive again. Gordon discusses two components of an apparatus with the power to make the replicas go away. She mentions that she used it on her own replica. Reya wants to use the machine so she can disappear. Chris is not happy with this and argues with Reya about it. Reya tells Chris that she's not a whole person because she came from his memory of his late wife. She tells him that this version of her is suicidal because he remembers the real Reya as such. Chris reveals that he regrets leaving the house, even when she asked him not to, because he was angry. He believes that this is his chance to redeem his mistake. Chris begins taking a chemical stimulant to stay awake, so Reya doesn't commit suicide. One night, Reya convinces Chris to lie down, after which he falls asleep. Reya manages to convince Gordon to use the apparatus on her. In a video message, she explains to Chris that she begged Gordon to make her disappear. Chris runs to confront Gordon, calling her a murderer. Gordon insists that she did the right thing. Gordon also tries to turn the AI of the ship back on so they can return to Earth. Suddenly, they notice blood on the ceiling, and upon investigation they discover that the real Snow has been dead for a while, and the Snow they have been talking to is a replica. Confronting Snow's replica, they learn that the real Snow had attacked the replica, and the replica killed him in self-defense. Gordon decides to use the Higgs apparatus on Snow, but Snow lets them know that they don't have much time. Solaris has been taking on mass, and their ship is now a lot closer to the planet due to its gravitational field. He also tells them that the Higgs device drained the fuel cell reactors, so they can't use this ship to go back. He suggests that they should take the Athena back to Earth. Gordon and Chris prepare to leave the ship and climb onto the Athena. Sometime later, Chris is back on Earth, forcing himself to be normal. He feels like the word Earth is a strange one now, and it seems unfamiliar. He admits that he doesn't know how he used to live before, and that he's faking his way through life now. He has been mimicking the expressions and emotions of other people around him, but he doesn't know how to act anymore. Chris is haunted by the idea that he remembers Reya wrong, and that he may be wrong about everything else. One day, while cutting vegetables, Chris manages to cut his finger. As he rubs the wound under running water, he sees that his cut has been instantly healed. Chris realizes that he never returned to Earth. A flashback shows that Chris decided not to go on the Athena, and Gordon left without him. As he walks around the space station, it starts getting engulfed by Solaris. Chris continues walking around, calling out for Reya. He starts hearing a loud sound, causing him to cover his ears. Snow looks up at the sky, as the station is completely engulfed by Solaris. The replica of Jabarian's son Michael appears and offers Chris support. As their fingers almost touch, Chris finds himself back in his apartment. He hears Reya's voice and turns around to find the love of his life smiling at him. With tears in his eyes, he asks her if he's alive or dead. Reya simply responds that they don't have to worry about those things anymore. She tells him that they're together now. Everything they've done is forgiven. Chris tightly embraces Reya and shares a passionate kiss with her as the two hold each other, ready to take on their new journey. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.